I want to welcome everybody to TehachaPod from the City of Tehachapi. This is our charter mission in our venture of communicating in different ways with our community. I'm Key Budge. Along with me, I've got Costelloe, Greg Garrett. Guys, introduce yourselves to the audience, and we've got some great information to share.
Well, I'm Greg Garrett. I'm the city manager, and this is an exciting day for me and for the city and the community. We're adding another section to our communications to the residents of this great region. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm Costelloe, Economic Development Coordinator, and this is always great because Greg figured out how to take two former radio guys, and say, what can they do? They can podcast.
Yeah, but we want to make sure that it's not podcasting all day, every day. It's part of our portfolio.
That's right.
We're going to have a lot of fun with this, but it's going to be communication, right?
This is about getting information out to the public in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
We've got so many people that are commuting, that leave our beautiful community, and this gives them a chance to stay up to date with what's going on in and around our great city.
And I was in that boat for a while too. I mean, before I worked here, when I would commute to Bakersfield, I listened to so many podcasts because you don't listen to so many songs on the radio, right? And so just getting that 35-minute podcast, that was the way down, and on the way up, truck climbing lanes being a different episode one day, but they need to be a little longer.
And I'm going to date myself. I was books on tape. I used to listen to books like The Invisible Man and things because there was no technology available to us.
Those are the original podcasts.
But they were. But with our Facebook, Twitter, all those accounts, Key, why don't you tell us about all those accounts? And this is just going to be another piece of the pie.
We absolutely try and communicate with everyone using the different platforms that are out there. We're in a digital age, and Facebook obviously is number one. It is our number one. Followed social media. We've got Instagram and Twitter. We're on SoundCloud. We're on Nextdoor, but this will be available through various.
Right, and we have city council meetings, planning commission meetings, and don't forget, we are always here at City Hall, right? Pick up the phone, come in the front door, call me, email me, or any of us, and we will come to you, right? We want to make sure that you're not filling in the blanks with something that may not be the facts.
Yeah,
right?
we want
the truth.
We want to give you the information from the horse's mouth,
right.
so to speak.
Right.
So we're here to make sure that we're as transparent as possible, getting you the information so you can make the decisions based on complete information, not a 10-second soundbite from a news story.
And even the name of this was actually TehachaPod was actually created by. We had a little city employees contest, and we actually had two guys that worked in the same department-ish. In Public Works and Utilities, come up with the same name, and they didn't talk about it.
Yeah, Bernie and Brian. Yeah,
Bernie
thanks
and Brian.
to them.
And actually, that reminds me, I owe them lunch. I told them it'd be a prize, and I haven't taken them out to lunch yet, so I need to do that. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, so listen to the first episode going, he owes me lunch.
Yeah, right.
So the name TehachaPod came from our Public Works department, thanks to Bernie and Brian. So, and hopefully our introductions warm you up a little bit, but we've got some information we want to share. We've got council meetings that take place on the first and third Mondays of each month, and recently we had a meeting, and we covered some ground. So
we had a large agenda last council meeting. We, as a reminder, again, we're first and third Mondays of every month at the Wells Education Center. We share with Tehachapi Unified School District. So that's pretty exciting. We're sharing resources and saving the taxpayer money. But if we could just really quickly go over some of the highlights from the meeting. We talked a lot about water and sewer fees, right? Not water and sewer rates that the ratepayer, the user pays. That was actually printed in one of the local newspapers, but water fees. So what that means is when you develop within the city of Tehachapi, it's called plug and play. And so if you build a home or a retail or something, you need fresh water and you need treated wastewater. So you need to pay a fee so that we can make certain that those facilities we're designing, we're building, and we're maintaining those at the proper level. So you have water through the duration of the project, you have treated wastewater. So we adjusted our fees. We need to do that every couple of years to be in line with the law, and we want to make sure that we're charging people the correct fee. So actually our fee structures went down as just kind of from 10,000 feet, our fees went down. So we're really excited about that. And then also the state of California, SB 998, which is Senate Bill 998, they're requiring water providers to restructure the way that we manage water accounts and how we can shut off people that don't pay, quite frankly. The state of California considers water to be a right these days, so we had to change some of our ordinances and municipal codes with that. But that's really kind of the overall, the 10,000 feet. It's hard to pack it in a TehachaPod or TehachaPod,
Yeah.
but yeah.
But that's a perfect segue, actually.
I want to go back to what you were talking about with the fees, because if a citizen's listening and they hear fees coming from government, these and what was talked about, discussed at the council meeting, does not impact our current people that are on the water. So this is for new build.
That's right.
So I don't want anyone to think that there's going to be a new fee that's associated with their water account or their sewer.
That's right.
It is not. This is for new construction, so that way they can be added on and be a part of the infrastructure.
I'm glad you brought us back to that point, Key. It's super important for the residents of the great city of the City of Tehachapi to not subsidize any new construction or growth, right? That's been a goal of ours for many, many years, and new growth pays its way. So not only water and sewer, but roads, parks, all those things are taken into account when we look at a new project. So yeah, new construction pays its own way. Current residents do not subsidize in any way new construction.
Perfect.
I think what Greg, and then the last thing when you talk about SB 998, that's actually the good segue to what we were sort of going to talk about today. The state says that water is a right, that utility is a right per se,
Right.
but they've kind of made it that power necessarily isn't. So
Isn't that ironic? Right? We can flip the switch and turn the power off, but you can't turn the water off.
Right.
Well, I think you need both, as a matter of fact.
And they're moving towards making internet more of a right as
Right.
well. And so, but yet power is still still out there. And that kind of segues what we were going to really kind of highlight on the show today, which was the Public Safety Power Shutoffs in the town hall.
Yeah, with PSPS, we experienced those events in the entire zip code in the month of October. And it really had an impact as they started throwing switches without notification,
Right.
they being SCE.
Right.
And we really got a chance to internalize individually and also as organizations how well set up we were for those. It's a non-emergency event that kind of becomes an emergency based on weather and other circumstances, but it's one of those things that we really have to identify individually, how we protect our homes, our
That's right.
families,
That's right.
and prepare, but then also as a city, when everything was shut off throughout the zip code, there was no gasoline. There were no markets. There was no place for people to get warm food, shelter. They were up to their own individual, ability to take care of themselves.
Right.
So we went through quite a bit. I know, Corey, you were on the phone a lot with our representatives in Sacramento.
Yeah, I felt like Shannon Grove and I became besties. I mean, really, she was so great, and Assemblyman Fong as well. They were calling just to check in. Okay, what can I do? And I mean, some of the conversations I had with Senator Grove. I mean, she was telling me, I'm telling people, and I'm telling them their next words out of their mouth better be, Senator, I'm handling it. I mean, she really was. I'm sure she was in Sacramento at the time and trying to talk to the utility folks about kind of the madness that was going on in Tehachapi, because a lot of it didn't make sense. As you mentioned, some circuits that weren't mentioned were being thrown. We had stuff early. We had no notifications, and then there was a fire out in Steins Springs, which got the panic going. And at one point they thought maybe we'll evacuate people, and we said, well, where do you take them? Because there's no power in the city either.
Right.
And so I was impressed with the response by our lawmakers to sort of help and put the pressure on the folks they deal with in Sacramento and the Public Utilities Commission, and then ultimately it led to what Senator Grove was able to do here in Tehachapi about a month ago.
At the town hall meeting.
Yeah.
Can't thank Senator Grove enough and Assemblyman Fong. I am super proud of our city team and the residents of this city and this community. We once again proved that we can hold our own. I was in direct communication with Chief Krager at our police department. We didn't have any emergencies in the city. Our fresh water continued to flow because we were prepared with backup generators. Our wastewater continued to to be treated. But we ended up renting backups to our backups, right? And so it was so unnecessary. And we made videos, right, Key, that were promoted all the way up the food chain into the state of California leadership and SCE.
And I think because of a lot of the noise that we made to make sure that our community, it wasn't just about the city, even though some people that might be in the outlying areas thought that we were only focused on the city, we know that we have to have a voice, and it ripples and takes care of our surrounding communities. We wanted them to have a voice too and become involved in it. But I think it prompted this PSPS town hall that Senator Grove hosted. Mm-hmm. And we have some sound that we recorded from Senator Grove, Mayor Wiggins, mm-hmm. and also Bob Steins, who is with the Public Affairs Division of Southern California Edison. So why don't we check in on some of those audio sound bites that we've got, and then we'll come back and kind of wrap up our PSPS discussion.
Sounds good.
The town hall was called because there was with the PSPS shutdowns, with the power shutoffs that took place in 2019, Tehachapi was disproportionately affected, and the community was it was a devastating time for them. And so we want to make sure that Southern California Edison is here answering questions, what they're doing to prevent this from going on in the future, and making sure that they realize that Tehachapi matters and that they need to answer to the people of Tehachapi for shutting off their power, and specifically without notification. That's the big issue. With the PSPS shutoffs and all the stuff that's going on with the wildfires and with the major utilities that affect our daily lives, it's a statewide issue. It just doesn't happen in Tehachapi. They had issues up in Northern California and all the way down in Southern California and San Diego and Orange County. So, but this mountain community in my district, a large portion of my district was affected, along with other senators' areas and districts. But Tehachapi was disproportionately affected because of the communication system that was in place with Southern California Edison, and that's what we desperately want to address. The town is sophisticated, and it can react when there's notification sent out so that they can address hospitals, the wastewater treatment plants, things like that need to be taken care of. But when you have no notice and you don't know the power's going off and it automatically gets shut off, that's a communication issue that Southern California Edison needs to address. So I think that we need to look at infrastructure. We can't just scream climate change. We've got to look at real solutions to fix real problems. We need to do hardening of the infrastructure. We need to make sure we have a energy grid security system that makes sure that it can't be hacked or penetrated. And we need to make sure that we do vegetation management. We've held hearings up in Sacramento so that we can get the real solutions that need to take place. You can't just scream climate change and expect things to expect to make a difference. We've got to make sure that we address specific issues that will make it better for our residents. I mean, we're the state of California, and our lights go out 30-something days a year, and that's unacceptable.
I want you to know that even though I'm the mayor of the city of Tehachapi, sometimes people all over the valley think that I actually have power to do things, which isn't always necessarily true. But I was getting phone calls at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. You're the mayor, do something. So we called Shannon. But we all want to help each other and have this be a smoother process in the future. It has to be. Our community endured multiple PSPS events, some with zero notice from SCE. The whole city was down, so we didn't have restaurants, grocery stores, gasoline, nothing.
I just want to acknowledge we have not been perfect on those notifications. There have been occasions where we have not provided the notifications, and I'll just be upfront and acknowledge that. We're working on getting better. Part of it is it's based on the weather, and sometimes the weather doesn't always behave like we project it to. But we're getting better at that. I'll talk about we're putting additional weather stations in and continually refining our weather modeling, which I'll talk about to help us improve. The conditions we're looking for is, again, it's not just the wind speed. It's a number of conditions. It's what's the wind speed? What are the humidity levels? What are the fuel conditions? How dry is the fuel? The dryness of the fuel is very, very important. We go out and have services that help us sample that fuel. That feeds into our modeling, as well as there's some really sophisticated technology that I don't understand, using satellites and other things that can help detect what the moisture levels in the fuel are. So all that information gets fed into our Situational Awareness Center, which is near our company headquarters in Irwindale, which is where our Emergency Operations Center.
Thank you to Senator Grove with what she did in bringing the town hall together. In discussions that I had with her staff, I told her if we had held this in November, December, we would have had to move it to the football stadium because we would have had 500-600 people easy attend. We still had 75 people come out here in January or February, early February for this event, and there was people that still felt that right to the core that not enough was done by Edison to correct the issues that were at hand.
That's right.
And the good news, I think Edison is working on it. It's so much to be done. I mean, it's changed what they can and can't do, what they feel is, their liability, and so they're replacing poles, they're putting up wind meters and cameras and stuff. So I think this next year possibly will be better. Will it go away? No. But there might be a little more local control. I mean, I think our local guys on the ground, the boots on the ground here, they know more, and they've tried to get the message across to the folks down in LA, that area that's making the decisions on the circuit shutoffs. Hey guys, it's a normal day in Tehachapi. We're okay. But they said, oh no, the wind's hitting this threshold and it's coming out of it's a Santa Ana wind and we got to go. So I think they're starting to take their opinions and their input a little more serious, and then putting up some actual better weather monitoring. And I mean, I saw a team the other day it was windy, and of course we're in the winter time, but it was. And they mentioned they even monitor in the winter, and there was actually an SCE truck with a big red label on the side that said Weather Monitoring Unit. And that's what they drove around and did, and they checked stuff on the grid.
Yeah, we need to underscore that the local guys, they really understand what's going on, and they're helping the city and this community understand better, the grids, the microgrids that we might end up with, which I think is a key to managing this whole program. But like Corey said, we've got cameras and little wind turbines going up, or wind monitors, I should say, and things are coming along. And that, I think, is due to a lot because of the City of Tehachapi. We have put a lot of pressure on Southern California Edison, and we have made it known that this was unnecessary. This was unnecessary, and we're all about public safety. I mean, that's the business that we're in, public safety. But certainly, we don't need to just take the easy road. If we need to improve our infrastructure, if we need to do certain things, then we'll do it. As a matter of fact, Corey, we just received a grant.
Yeah, I was going to say we got some good news on that front. So really just, I would say probably a week or two after the statewide, I mean, it wasn't just us who had this. This happened all over the state with the Public Safety Power Shutoffs, Edison, PG&E. So the Governor's Office of Emergency Services opened up a pretty big pool of funding for cities. They had another pool for counties and CSDs, but they had a pool for cities. And so we put together a proposal. We went back to what Greg had mentioned about the rentals, and we looked at what we were renting, how can we not rent. So we basically had a proposal. What would a 300 kilowatt generator, 150 kilowatt generator cost us? And we put that proposal together, and we submitted to Cal OES our proposal, and we found out last week it was accepted. So we got a grant for $300,000 from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services for PSPS resiliency. And what that means in our case is to back up our critical infrastructure, water, wastewater. So we're not having to rent those generators. We have them in-house. We can maintain them. Our guys can deploy them quicker. In these events, they can move them around. So if they need to pump water and there's multiple wells that don't have power, they can move that around so they're not over pumping maybe one well. And so I'm excited about it. I know the Public Works team's excited about it. And I think it just, for our residents, it's just another reassuring piece that we were able to get something out of this kind of odd situation.
Right. And during tough times, there's always a positive, right? And I think the biggest positive was it was a big test, right? We tested our infrastructure, our police department, our public works, our management, our emergency operations. Even though we didn't initiate the EOC, or the Emergency Operations Center, we were able to understand better what can we do, what we cannot do, how can we provide that service, how can we make certain that this city and this community, quite frankly, are safe. And we were able to do that, and it wasn't a big prearranged test where you know what's coming, right? We didn't know that the whole city, minus a block or two, which is really
those circuits
odd,
to be off. They
right?
weren't on the list.
Like, why would you turn off Tehachapi Boulevard? Tehachapi Boulevard is not going to burn. But I digress, and I'm not going to get too political
we
here.
had one side of the street that City Hall's on that was with power,
Right.
and we didn't have power.
Yeah, right, right. So it's just super. It was an odd scenario, but there was a big positive that came out of it, and the city employees rose to the occasion, and we delivered, and we kept the city safe.
We had great communication amongst employees. I think that
Right.
morning. Funny story with Tyler Napier, our deputy public works director. There was one slight glitch. One of the generators that powers up the communication tower for police, it wasn't working, so they had to switch to their emergency. So Tyler and his team dispatched a generator, but he was missing a cord. Of course, everybody in the world had bought the generators and cords from Home Depot, Tractor Supply. And so he sent me a picture. Well, I had been one of those guys who bought the cords. I bought the wrong one for my house. So I said, I have that cord.
Oh.
I said, go to my house. You can pick it up. It's in my garage. So Tyler went and picked it up and took it out. And so we're able to get the police, and I said, just
Right.
keep it. I don't need it. I bought the wrong one. So it was that kind of like,
Right.
great communication amongst employees.
Right.
What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? Let's get it going.
Right.
Get generators on at buildings, that kind of stuff
Right.
to get services going.
And on the
So-
political side, our city council members, they were very engaged with what was going on. They were understanding. They were helping to promote the fact that we need help. They were behind the scenes, doing some heavy lifting with our county, with our state, and everyone around us that could essentially help us. Yeah. So it was a team effort. There's no doubt about it.
I think a special shout out to our administrative team at the front at City Hall,
right?
Because everybody assumed that it was, I have to call City Hall about this. Residents of the city, residents of outside of the city, they fielded. I mean, we had a log. We kept the log.
Oh, it was incredible.
Their customer service skills were certainly put to the test because a lot of people were upset, but they did an awesome job. Like it was, I would listen to them talking to them, like, ma'am, I understand your frustration.
Right.
We're doing,
and we don't want to ever discourage anyone from calling, right?
Yeah.
I don't care if you live at Fraser Park. Call us.
Yeah.
We want to try to help you and direct you to that place that you need to be.
Yeah.
And that was one thing we did was we put together lists of the proper places they should be talking to and having phone numbers, not just telling them, hey, you need to go over to X
not
and Y.
our problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We gave them solutions for their individual problems. Right. A couple takeaways for me, because we did a lot of education leading up to the PSPS events. We knew they were coming. SCE, the Public Utilities Commission, they had talked about this was going to be coming when Santa Ana.
And it's coming again, right? Make no mistake.
It's for the next 10 years.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. Don't think it's over.
But with all of that and the education that we tried to do about self-preparedness and preparing for emergencies based on what happened in Ridgecrest and these PSPS events, we did see an uptick in people preparing themselves for different events.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, very solid. Coming out of the town hall meeting and listening to what Edison was saying, they said, hey, we're bringing in this new insulated line, but it's 6 years.
Yeah.
It's a 6-year project for this zip code.
It's robust stuff.
Which, if we're talking 6 years, that really could be maybe 8 or 10, in reality. But the nice thing is to see Edison is out here now, starting to make some changes, upgrades. I think our voices were heard,
right? I
and
agree.
they had said that, the amount of noise that we made it down to the corporate office, that they do need to listen to the boots on the ground in regional
Tehachapi
areas.
matters.
Right. There are micro weather climates,
right.
and not just a broad brush effect. You need to look individually. So they need to, and they said they're trying to identify isolating circuits so they can make it smaller areas, not big impacts. They had no concept in Rosemead, California, where their incident command center was set up, what it was going to impact. And for one of those notes is they had sent me a direct message via Twitter. It says, hey, just tell your folks to head out to Stallion Springs where our warming hut is set up.
Right.
Well, that's 20 miles away, and there's no gasoline, so that's not an
That's
option.
a problem.
Having those conversations with them, I've invited them to come up. I go, you guys need to leave Rosemead. You need to come to Tehachapi and see the zip code, so it's not just one little tiny area.
Yeah, and I worked with the Greater Tehachapi Economic Development Council. We did a survey of businesses because some people expected it, and this was the Greater Tehachapi area because GTDC represents all investors or all around the area. And we did a survey of just, okay, what did you spend as a business owner? What did you lose in potential sales? And we had an average, I think the average loss was around $4,000 in sales, and the average investment was over $1,000 by people buying a small generator to keep coolers going. Many couldn't do sales. Some could, because this day and age with Square and that kind of stuff on your cell phone, they're able to run sales through Square. But they couldn't run. I use Canine Creek, for example, the dog grooming and pet store here in town. They couldn't run their grooming booths because they didn't have enough power to let people come in, use the dog wash, that kind of stuff. So they basically shut the shop down. They sold some food and stuff here and there, but they had to send employees home. The biggest one that I heard was this was a home-based business from what I can tell, but they make a beeswax candle, but they have major investors. They have major clients, including TJ Maxx. Well, they almost lost their TJ Maxx contract because they could not deliver and they're outside of the city, so they were without power for quite some time, a couple of days. They couldn't deliver the products that they had promised TJ Maxx and Marshalls, and they almost lost that deal, which would have probably made this business belly up. And it wasn't a group I was familiar with, and it was one of those stories that you don't think about. But yeah, there were deliverables down the line that were affected, and so that was one of the things that I think that we looked at from the business standpoint. And Select a Switch being another one, just right down the road here at the edge of the city. They have some employees here in Tehachapi, 14 or so. Yeah, they couldn't work because they had to go home because there wasn't power. But big picture, their data center for the entire company in their location in the Los Angeles basin and in Tennessee, they can't get their network. Their data is stored in Tehachapi. So that was all down. Those employees weren't able to work that day as well. So we're talking all across the country being impacted by a power event in Tehachapi, California.
And we don't want anybody to ever think that we're anti-SCE or that we're anti-public safety by any stretch of the imagination, right? Public safety is number one in our book, and we do not want a wildfire. However, I think that we're better than this. We're better than a third world country. We can understand our grid better. We can manage our grid better, and we can keep people productive and warm and making money, not causing economic harm to each other. We're better than that.
I totally agree. And I think we improve the way we communicate, the way we talk to the public, the way we talk to our neighboring agencies,
Right.
Not just on the public safety level, but here at the communications level. We opened up doors that you only do during an emergency situation. We'd done a lot of work leading up. So we were talking to the county of Kern. I was from the communication side, so we would have a little bit better flow of information so we could get it out to the community. So I think it was a learning experience. We got through it. Thank God that no one passed away during these events. I mean, we did have 9 people treated at the hospital for carbon monoxide poisoning. Right. So there's still a lot more education and things that need to be done, self-preparation, but I think that's all a part of the discussion and trying to get Edison, the fire department involved in making people aware, and those are some of the things that we're working on
Right.
on my end to try and get more information out for people to prepare themselves.
And big picture, as both of you mentioned, this was kind of an emergency test, and so you also have now those lines of communication are more open because everybody that usually deals with an emergency at the county level, the city level, surrounding agencies, we were all in contact during PSPS. So the beauty is now, God forbid, we have a bigger disaster. We're more in tune with each other. We're able to communicate a little bit better. And we even added a PSPS section to our EOC manual, Emergency Operations Center manual, because should it get to a certain level, it could trigger an action emergency situation. So those are things that we're able to really learn from this. And sometimes, it does make you better when you go through the fire a little bit.
Absolutely.
It's just like the July earthquakes in Ridgecrest, on the 4th and the 5th, or the 3rd and the 4th, whatever it was. The first calls I made were to Chief Krager and to Don Marsh, my public works director, to make sure that our city was safe and secure and things were flowing as they should. The second call I made was to the city manager, Ron Strand, down at Ridgecrest, to understand what happened. How can the city of Tehachapi help? And so cities, counties, we're getting better at communicating and working together for the good of the public, right? It's so important. It's just like the Grand Fondo. It's a bike ride, but really we're getting together, Stallion Springs, Golden Hills, Bear Valley, Kern County Sheriff, CERT, I could go on, and we plan and we train for that day so that we can manage that event. But really, at the end of the day, it's so that we know each other better, we're understanding our resources better, how can we help each other better. It's win-win for all of us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We're running out a little bit of time here on our maiden voyage with TehachaPod. We've got exciting things that we're going to talk about in future editions. I know that President Trump was here, and we've got discussions about that because some people sitting at this table were in that audience.
Yeah,
so
standing around for hours on end.
I think that's where
there was some interesting takeaways, so we'll have that in a future episode.
Yes.
We've got construction projects with the weather warming up that are about to break ground, and that's exciting. And we've got more businesses that are in construction phase in different parts of
we have so much going on in our city and our community. 65% of us commute out of the city or out of this community every day, whether we're going to the Antelope Valley or Aerospace Valley or down the San Joaquin Valley. And we want to reach you, but we also want to reach anybody that wants to listen, right? Because this is just another venue. And Key and Corey and I were talking about the different aspects and kind of making a list and planning this out. And it's so big. There's so many opportunities that we could discuss, we could talk about, and start getting that information out, because we want you, the listener, to hear us, to understand, and to start questioning.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Why are we doing it? So that because it is your town, it is your community, it is your tax dollars that are funding all of these improvements. And then the private individual and the corporations that are coming in, they're coming in here because they're seeing value in their investments, right? We're protecting their investments. Some things that are not happening in and around our community, which makes me sad as we look out. But we're doing good things in Tehachapi. And when I say we're doing good things, I mean all of us. All of us. There's 40,000 people here, and we're doing good things.
I couldn't agree more. And if anyone has a question they'd like answered, maybe a topic discussed in a future episode of TehachaPod, you can send an email to media@tehachapicityhall.com. Be happy to either answer the question, or maybe we can further discuss what it is that interests you. You can always give me a call here at City Hall, 822-2200, extension 119. And I look forward to first, thanks to both of you for sitting in and taking your time. And I look forward to future episodes.
This is going to be great.
And don't forget, people, subscribe to the podcast.
That's right. So how do you subscribe to podcasts? An old guy, I'm asking.
Explain this to Greg.
How does that work? How does that work?
Episode. Just hit the subscribe button. That's how it works.
Well, I got to tell all my old friends how to subscribe, right? So how do you do that?
It's just as easy as clicking on a button.
There you go.
Okay.
So right next to...
Well, I'll have my wife or kids help me out with that, and we'll get it going.
That's it.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for joining us.